What's up, guys? So this video, as somebody that was born and raised in Alaska, this is kind of, this is going to be controversial. It might piss some people off, and some people might agree with me. But I think it's safe to say that we can say that Annemarie Chase is not really from Alaska. She moved up here in 2007, okay, or 2006, sometime between 2006 and 2007, if we're doing the math right. That's when She moved up. Okay, she has largely benefited from the military-industrial complex and from U.S. imperialism. Why? Her dad's in the military. Her dad was in the military. Okay, her dad was in the military. She was born in Colorado. She then moved to Washington, to Fort Lewis McChord. Again, she has said this with her own words, right? She has said this with her own words. She moved to Washington, to Fort Lewis McChord, and then sometime around 2006, 2007, her dad retired from the military. She came up here to Anchorage, okay? So she's not really from here. She spent her teenage years here, okay? She spent her teenage years here. But to be from somewhere, there's two definitions, right? There's you were born there, or you have ancestral heritage. Now, she's not Athabascan, so we can rule that one out. And she was not born here. So she grew up here, but she's not from here. Capiche? Growing up somewhere and being from somewhere are two different things. Like, I'm from Alaska because I was born in Alaska, but I'm also from Spain because my maternal grandpa was Spanish, right? Technically, because my maternal grandpa was Spanish, I'm from Alcalá de Henares, which is a suburb of Madrid, Castrojeri, which is a town in Castilla y León, Santiago de Compostela, which is a town in Galicia, Pontevedra, which is another town in Galicia, and Barcelona, which is a city in Catalonia, right? As well as Soterre Católico, which is a town in Aragon, okay? So I'm technically from those places. And I'm also from Anchorage because I was born in Anchorage, right? Just like with my mom. From Anchorage because she was born in Anchorage, but from Castrojeri and from Santiago de Compostela, Alcalá de Henares, Pontevedra, and Barcelona, and Soterre Católico because she's Spanish, okay? Because my grandpa was Spanish. Because my great-grandpa was Spanish. Because we can trace it all the way back to La Casa de Trastámara, La Casa de Castro, La Casa de Traba, La Casa de Aragon, right? You can trace my lineage all the way back to that, right? So, La Casa de Valladares, you know what I mean? So, Annemarie is not from Alaska by heritage or by birthplace, okay? She's not. She was born in Colorado. Her dad is Finnish, German, and I believe Irish because the last name, right? Because her legit last name, which she said on the And We Were Roommates podcast, which is Allen, which I did my research. It's an Irish last name. And her mom's Korean, okay? So she might have grown up here, but she's not from here originally. And she'll even say that with her own words. But I feel like hella people hype her up like she actually speaks for us, okay? Like she actually represents us. Bruh, she benefited largely from the military-industrial complex. She benefited largely from U.S. imperialism, okay? Her dad was in the military, okay? You want to know what job my dad does? Commercial fisherman, okay? You want to know what he does? He long lines halibut. He catches halibut. Okay, I know you because I know you like fish tacos. I like fish tacos too, okay? I love halibut tacos. So while, what's-his-face Allen, Annemarie Chase's dad, was aiding and abetting U.S. war crimes, my dad was catching fish, feeding people, okay? She grew up comfy. I didn't really grow up comfy. Now, I didn't grow up in like some kind of slum, you know. I didn't grow up in some type of Widener building, right? No. I grew up solidly middle class. Like, there was struggles, you know, there was struggles. There was hella struggles. But I didn't grow up fucking bougie. I didn't grow up like my dad's nieces and nephews, where they had a silver spoon in their mouth. Everything was basically handed to them. You know, they were getting into schools like frickin' Colorado University and Dartmouth College and University of Texas. Heck no. Heck no. I dropped out of college, okay? You know, I had hella hardships. You know, I didn't really have a father figure growing up, you know? My grandpa, my late grandpa, my abuelo, the one that's Spanish, the one that was Spanish, that was my father figure. That was basically my only father figure growing up. Okay? I grew up hard. Like, not like fucking food stamps hard, but like hard for South Anchorage. Hard for South Anchorage, which is one of the wealthier zip codes in the state of Alaska. But where I grew up, I was considered lower middle class. Like, I didn't grow up in a big ass mansion, you know, with a fucking movie theater in it and shit, like people from Prominence Point and South Point and fucking Golden View Park did, and South Park. No, I grew up in a normal sized house for South Anchorage, right? So, and I grew up with rabbits at my mom's house. We raised rabbits at my mom's house. We raised chickens and roosters at my grandpa's house. Like, I grew up in the fucking boonies, okay? Because in South Anchorage, you either grow up on a homestead or you grow up in a subdivision. I grew up on a homestead. Actually, 2 homesteads. My mom's place and my grandpa's place, right? So, Annemarie Chase, and look, I saw bears and lynx and porcupines and moose growing up on the regular in my mom's backyard. Okay? There were times we couldn't go outside because of bears and lynx and moose and porcupines. There were times we had to put the rabbits inside the garage, which was kind of our de facto barn because they chewed up my mom's basement. Actually, the little gray and white buck we had, his name was Thumper. He chewed up the basement, my mom's basement. So, yeah. So, but we had to put the rabbits inside because there was carnivores and omnivores out in the yard, okay? I've been 20 feet away from a brown bear once. I was weeding my mom's back walkway, right? I was listening to ESPN radio, the Dan Le Batard show. I was talking to my younger brother who's on the porch. Bear ran by, you know? Brown bear, you know? Ran by because it had stole trash from my mom's neighbors, okay? Annemarie grew up comfy. Again, she grew up with U.S. imperialist dollars, war criminal dollars. I grew up with clean money from commercial fishing. You heard? So, and Annemarie's a transplant who was born in Colorado and then moved to Washington and then moved to Alaska. I was born and raised up here. So I can speak for Alaska, at least for the Spanish community in Alaska, at least for working class Spanish, Portuguese, Italian, Croatian, French, Dutch, people like that in Alaska, okay? Annemarie, she doesn't represent those of us that were actually born and raised up here. She represents those that arrived in like grade 5 and then just decided to stay, right? There's different levels to this. She does not represent those of us that was like legit born and raised here, okay? And that's why she goes out and she fucking glorifies it, and she's able to glorify it, especially as someone who is second generation born in Anchorage, second generation born in Alaska. I don't have that luxury of being able to, you know, whitewash all the fucking social ills because I see it every day. You know, I grew up here. My mom grew up here, you know. We don't have that luxury of being able to whitewash the social ills. So, you know, Annemarie needs to speak for outsiders that were transplants up here and not for people that were actually born here. Because I was actually born here, and never in a million years would I glorify Alaska when our infrastructure sucks, our economy sucks, our justice system is an injustice system. You know, Alaska has the second highest rates of police brutality and unemployment in the entire United States. I would never glorify Alaska until those things are fixed. Until we get infrastructure to every single town in the state, because most towns in our state are not even attached to the road system. Until we get high-speed rail between the towns in our state, you know, until we get commuter rail or at least a tram or a light rail in Anchorage, until we get actually a walkable setup for Anchorage where the sidewalks are like 5 feet, 6 feet, 7 feet, 8 feet wide, and the roads are like 1 lane, 2 lane, right? 2 lane. Haha, that's my cousin's university. Okay, all jokes aside, you know, I will never glorify that until the people's basic needs are met. They don't even shovel the sidewalks in the wintertime when there's snow, and same with the roofs. A friend's wife passed away this winter when the roof at Turnagain CrossFit fell in. I believe her name was Sadie Johnson. Her husband, John Paul Huffer, is a track coach at Bartlett. Okay, I ran track and field for South when I was in school. Okay, I ran everything between the 100 and the 800, and I even did the long jump a little bit. 100 was my best event. 800, either 800 or long jump was arguably my worst event. I was okay at the 2 and the 4, but 100 was really my bread and butter, which is weird because in junior high at Golden View, I was nice at the 400, okay? And I even won the state in 8th grade in the 400, okay? But I'm not an endurance guy, genetically speaking, and DNA tests have proved that. So the one in high school, the 100 was my best event, you know? But that being said, Annemarie should only talk from a perspective that she's a transplant born in Colorado, who spent some time in Washington, and then arrived up here in 2007, not as someone that was born and raised here, okay? And she talks about all the opportunity here. I was born and raised here. My mom was born and raised here. Like, there's no opportunity here. If you want opportunity in the United States, Seattle, Oakland, San Francisco, San Jose, Boston, New York. Those are your options. Those are your only options. Because economically, Alaska sucks. According to U.S. News, Alaska is like the 5th worst state. We're 45th out of 50. Like, that's like the relegation zone, if you know football, the relegation zone of La Tercera División. We are in the relegation zone of Tercera División, okay? Of La Tercera División. Okay, Washington is the best state in the USA. Why? Smart people from Alaska are all going to Seattle. So there you go. I rest my case on that, okay? But Annemarie, you know, she's benefited largely from U.S. imperialism, and she's a transplant who was born in Colorado and then moved to Washington, and then she moved up here. Oh, and she spent some time in South Korea as well, because her dad was in the military and her mom's Korean. So, yeah, so she's not really from Anchorage, if you know what I mean. So, there you go. There you go. I rest my case on that. You know what I mean? So, there you go.